Okay, you better...
I don't know how much battery I have left. Oh, Geoff, how you doing?
I'm good.
We paddled years ago.
Over 20 years ago.
Oh my lord! I got a walker.
I don't believe that for a minute.
Well, you got a whiskey for us. We're doing a whiskey fireside chat number. I forget the numbers all the time, but
this is a lovely Glenlivet that you can't even buy in Canada.
So you tried to get me to have this at the park, and I said that's illegal, and I said no. And then your very attractive girlfriend put what's it called, a handkerchief around my glass.
She did. She
and then
did.
the superintendent of the park came up to talk to me at the same time, and there was a bit of a panic.
I didn't even think that was illegal, to be honest.
It is
with
illegal.
You. Is it illegal?
You can't drink in a park lot in a provincial park. For good lord, what kind of?
Who hasn't drunk in a provincial park?
Yeah, we all have, but you're not allowed to do it when the superintendent's standing beside you. Oh, cheers.
Bless you. That might be one of the best whiskeys you will ever have, eh? Eh?
Why are you giving it to me then?
Because you have logged a lot of portage trails and deserve something like that.
And speaking of portage trails and people you know, you used to do terrible things to Hap Wilson.
I don't think I ever did horrible things to Hap Wilson.
Well, that's not what you said 5 minutes ago.
Is extortion horrible? Here's something else that we did with Hap and Lake Temagami in 1979. You know those motorboats that they put out there for emergency situations and the backboards? Yeah. We were very early wakeboarders. He lined that up and we had the nylon ropes in behind. It was probably like a 9.9 horse, and we wakeboarded with one of those backboard braces on Lake Temagami. That was the Junior Ranger program. Those
were the times.
Those were the times.
Oh, they knew what they were doing back then, I tell you.
Oh, juggling chainsaws.
And look how fancy you are now.
Oh.
Look at that. You got your own banner. I don't have a banner.
That's a mistake.
This is your first book. I don't have a banner. What the heck's wrong with me? Well, tell me all about it.
So, Tom Thomson's Last Bonfire.
Yeah.
The story's been told many times. I've read everything that has to do with Tom Thomson, but no one's ever written it from the paddler's perspective. Who were the guys who found him? What did they do? What happened to the body? What was the weather like that day? Who were his friends? You paddle with the same guys again and again. I paddled with the same group of guys in Algonquin for about 30 years, more or less. One of the conversations we had around a bonfire late one night, and there might have been some whiskey involved. What happens if one of us dies? What happens? Oh no, that's it. Like you're several portages in.
No, but didn't Tom's fly? Wasn't his fly down? Is that true?
There are so many different theories. Here's one is
make sure my fly's not down if I go over. Okay, just if you pull me up, my fly's down. Pull it up.
Just pull it back up. But what if like you're in several portages, you're in a deep lake. All my friends are over 200 pounds. We're not carrying you out. No. So we came up with we'll carry out a finger.
Who the heck takes the finger off and put it in your pocket?
I'd wrap it in a kerchief, I think.
I'm not sure about you, man. I just tell you, if I die with you, don't take my finger.
And we have just passed the 100th anniversary of the disappearance of Tom Thomson.
So is that what made you think of writing the book? Like, what was the whole concept? Oh, did you wake up in the morning with a sweat? Oh, I gotta write this book.
Couple things. My aunt and uncle owned the farmhouse that Tom Thomson grew up in outside of Owen Sound.
Oh, that's good.
So I have walked his streams. I have built bonfires out in his fields. I've even played mandolin in the parlor. Tom Thomson was a mandolin player. His whole family is very musical. So Tom Thomson's been part of my life for a long time. And then when you start to get into the mystery, we don't do a great job in Canada of telling our stories. Yeah. Especially, we have very few icons. Like, think of Canadian icons. You've got Tom Thomson, you've got Terry Fox, you've got Pierre Burton. You've got guys who should be there, like Arthur Curry should be there. You've got Sam Steele, who should be there, but we don't do a great job of telling their stories. Yeah. So he's got this iconic mythical perspective to him. But who was the man? And who were his friends? What were his friends like? What does it say about you by the people you choose to be with? Because he chose to be in Algonquin Park. He wasn't there because he was, jettisoned out of proper society and sent to some juvenile detention center, like most people in Algonquin Park. But so he chose to be there. Yeah. He chose to be there, and it was really only in the last 5 years of his life. And he's 39 years old, basically a hermit, and he was a painter of a bit of renown, but he was a famous fisherman. people, he could pull fish out of a bathtub. He made these lures that he would give his paintings away, but he wouldn't part with his lures. So he was an incredible fisherman, and was kind of painting on the side, but wasn't making any money, right? And in fact, he had a patron who gave him an allowance. He was almost like a teenager. He had enough allowance to be able to go out and paddle and carry on by himself. Yeah. So he disappears on July the 8th of 1917. It is the middle of the First World War. The war is absolutely raging. The city of Toronto is deserted of any kind of war-age men, right? So what is he doing up in Algonquin Park? There's nobody in Toronto. What's he doing in Algonquin Park? Who are his friends who are around him, who found him? George Rowe and Larry Dixon. Larry Dixon was the last of the shantymen. And the only thing I could find out about him is he was about 80 years old at the time, but nobody really knew exactly how old he was. And he was the last of the lumbermen, and he was an old lumber boss. So he would have been tough as nails. Imagine those days. You see the pictures of those lumber camps? And his body's starting to fail him. His mind isn't so sharp anymore. And the only things Arthur Lismer accused him of being a notorious poacher and a bootlegger of renown. So he's making.
Sounds like a good guy.
Sounds like a good guy to know. Here's another cool thing. Have you ever heard of the stopover houses around around Algonquin Park?
Like the huts?
No. Back when it was a logging area, back when they were logging, there was no booze allowed in the lumber camps.
Oh.
And so what
Really?
the old roads that would come in, like the Opiongo Road that would come up, and then the road in from Dorset, and there were these stopover houses because a team of horses could only go, I think, 20 miles in a day. And so they would have these stopover, it was basically like a hotel where you could leave a team of horses. And when the train comes through, Booth's train comes through 1890, all of a sudden these places become obsolete. Yeah. And so they become dens of inequity. And you can get anything you want to buy, legal, illegal, can be found in a couple of these stopover houses, including one that was run by a guy called Dirty Dick, who was supposed to be very quick with a knife. That was his name. Why
did you finish that sentence?
Yeah. Quick with a knife. Dirty Dick.
Okay. Oh, God.
That's really nice whiskey, though.
It is really nice. Sorry, Sally, as well. We all going? Is still record? We're good?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah,
your girlfriend in the background said, wait, oh my, she can't hold herself. She's giggling in the background.
Illegal booze, women gambling.
This is a good book.
It's a great book. Okay, Roy McGregor, I got way more sex, violence, and drugs in my book than you do in yours.
But he also, he read your book before it came out, and legend, I love the guy, fantastic writer, really great guy.
Yeah.
And he said something really nice about the book in the back.
Allegedly he did, yeah. No, his thing is that he thinks that Tom Thomson is one of Canada's greatest mysteries. And it's one that we don't know a whole lot of the facts. And I start with the facts, but then I say it's what do I say? Immaculately researched wild conjecture. So I find out who were the guys, who were the people, what do we know about them, and then I try to put some of their life, like what would they have seen in their lifetime. The one guy who we know, have you read any of Mark Robinson's diaries? Mm-hmm. Because they're at Trent University in the archives, and you got to go down, you put the white gloves on. So Mark Robinson was a recruiter for the Simcoe Rangers in the First World War. And so he was out of, he was an orangeman, he was a mason, he was a temperance guy, and went and recruited all of his friends' sons to go and fight overseas. And he was a big believer of God and country and so on. Christmas time, he finally makes it to the front. He's been recruiting for 2 years around Simcoe, and he's finally sent over, and he's sent over to Vimy, which the French army has almost been wiped out at. It's been fought over for 4 years. It has been an absolute desolate, and they are now planning the assault on Vimy Ridge. And he is there for 3 days, and his horse is shot out from underneath him. I've read his diaries that he wrote at Vimy Ridge. His horse is shot out from underneath him. He's tangled up in the barbed wire, and he gets an injury called a blighty. How does he feel being sent home? And he's a guy who should be celebrated. How does he feel being sent home? What kind of guilt is he living with? The casualty names are starting to come back after the assault on Vimy Ridge. He shows up Easter weekend of 1917, which is the same weekend as the assault on Vimy over in France. So he's back in Algonquin Park in this paradise, thinking that he's feeling the guilt of being away from the war after seeing the worst atrocities known to man, and he's in this idyllic setting, and he pulls up one of his closest friends out of the bottom of Algonquin Park. What's he like? What's he going on about? How's he feeling? His diaries are very factual, when you read them, and I've read years. In fact, I've read decades of his diaries. He's just a wonderful human being, but his story changes over the years, because Tom Thomson was in the water for 24 hours, and later on in life he claimed he was in there for 48 hours. The scar on his head goes from the right side to the left side, on Tom's corpse goes from the right side to the left side. He is back with this injury, and I've talked to my medical friends about this, my doctor friends about this. What did they treat it with at the time? Had to be morphine, right? So he's in charge, he's experiencing all this, and he's probably on morphine at the time. So then he becomes a character in the story. There's one of Tom's best friends is George Rowe, and the only thing I could find out about George Rowe is that he and Larry Dixon were often chastised for being too drunk to fish.
How many years did it take your whole life?
It's been ruminating for a while.
Gloves at the university for
I did
every night for days?
It used to be when I took the kids to swimming lessons.
Really?
I take the kids for swimming lessons, and I go over to the university and sit in the basement. Yeah, a multitasker.
And you're happy?
I'm thrilled with the way that's come out. Yeah, so it's out on Burnstown Publishing. I think it's a great paddle read, because you wrote something nice in the back too. I
did.
Yes.
Here's a good story about this. You caught me at the school in Coburg. I was teaching some students at risk that day that were very at risk, and driving me insane that day.
Okay.
And you said,
"Geez, really?
Read my book. Read my book. I want you to read my book." I went, "Yeah, okay,
I'll get you. Yeah.
I'm just dealing with some other issues right now. That's right." And I get home, and actually, in all honesty, I sat in this porch that night, and I poured not that good of a whiskey, but I poured blended. I started reading it, and I did notice that there was a different bit of a slant to it. Mm-hmm. How much can we say about this person? Mm-hmm. Well, maybe you can't say enough. Maybe it's a good story.
I think it's a great story, and it's a story that can be played with. And this adds to, as a fisherman, as a paddler, it adds to the kind of the mystery.
It's a good read, and the idea is if you're going on some canoe trip or sitting on the front porch with a whiskey and watching the sunset, it's a really good read.
Yeah,
it's fantastic.
Yeah. Well, thank you so much.
Well, thank you.
And
I just want to know where you get a banner like that.
Autographics in Peterborough.
My life's going to hell. You have a banner. It's your first book. Well, good luck to you.
Well, thank you so much.
It's a really good read.
Yeah, thank you.
Right. And Sally in the background, she was a lot more exciting than you were. She's amazing. I don't know, where'd you find that woman?
Oh.
You have to edit out the giggles. You guys were great.